Hi there. I would just like to say, before you watch the main video, I'd just like to issue a disclaimer and say that whenever I do an interview or a round table with other guests, or when I'm part of a round table or part of someone else's interview, I'd just like to say that with the people that I do interviews and roundtables with, there will always be something that I resonate with about that person. I might resonate with them completely or just partially, but there will always be a connection between myself and that person. I wouldn't be on a round table or an interview with someone that I didn't have that connection with. But having said that, that doesn't mean that whatever the other people say that are on that round table or on that interview, whatever they say, that doesn't mean I agree every single word they say. It doesn't mean that I resonate with everything that they are saying. It doesn't mean that I'm endorsing every word that they say. And I'm sure they feel the same way about me. So I just wanted to put that out there as a disclaimer before you see the main video. But please enjoy the video. Thank you for listening.
All right, we are live. It is Sunday, the 30th of August, 2020. And boy, are we in it now with all these wonderful protests all over the world. Humanity finally standing up for themselves. It's so awesome. So before we get started, we have Carrie K with us today, Magenta Pixie, Nina Starsong. Hello to everybody that's watching. A couple of the other girls are tied up in spots that aren't very good for Wi-Fi, and so if they can join, they will in a little bit. But before we get started, if you can please, let's just get up into our hearts and open up our glorious hearts to everyone. Focus your area of your heart, imagining that the breath is flowing in and out of the heart space. And make a sincere attempt to activate the feeling of love, care, and gratitude, and compassion for self and other. And let's just hold that space for about 1 minute. And let's bring it back. Oh, so beautiful to have that heart open. So today we are going to go galactic. And I'm so stoked about this conversation because I feel like it's so important now for everyone to understand that we have friends in high places. Friends in high places. And Carrie, for those that perhaps have not met her before, Carrie works with the Galactics, as does Nina, as does Magenta. I guess you could say we all work in some way or another with our wonderful divine beings, our star brothers and sisters. So I'm just going to leave it open and see who wants to share whatever feels like it needs to come through for humanity to feel inspired and loved and knowing that there's so much goodness happening in the background.
But before we start sharing our galactic information, I was wondering if it would be okay if I just give a shameless plug to the most recent live broadcast from Camelot TV. I've just watched it. Jen McCarthy and Liam McGennity are down at Camelot Castle, and they just did a live broadcast with John Mappin. It was absolutely amazing. It was so light-hearted and fun, and they were laughing, and Jen asked some really great questions, and John gave such wonderful answers. And right at the very end, and I've had a headache for the last few hours, and I also was wondering if I couldn't make it today. I've been lying down watching the broadcast, hoping my headache would go, but it didn't seem to be abating. But right at the end of the broadcast, Liam sang the beautiful song that he sang when we were in Glastonbury, When I Wake Up in the Morning, and he played the guitar, and Jen does the backing vocals, and it was just amazing. And it was I've seen him sing this before a couple of times, but it was the best performance. And I just felt I was being healed by his music, and well, by the whole show, actually. There was such a lovely light energy, despite the seriousness of the show, and a potential disagreement in perspective, which was handled so well. And I just like to give a plug for Camelot TV and their latest broadcast with Jen McCarthy and Liam McGennity, and Liam singing at the end. So yeah, I just put that out there and just say, please go watch it, because it was really good.
Yeah, and while we're having a shameless plug, let's talk about Millie. Millie and InfoWars and how Shadowgate. I fully encourage everybody to take a look at that movie, Shadowgate. It's really, really interesting. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, thank you. So who wants to go first with the Galactics? Come on. Go, Carrie.
Okay, I'll go. That was me waiting. You know, it's like having this huge swimming pool and telling your guests to dive in, and you don't really know where to dive in because the pool is huge and there's so much that we can talk about. But I will talk about and just start the conversation with some common questions that I get asked, and it's quite relevant to our conversation with the Galactics today. So one of the questions that I get asked really frequently is, where am I from? So there's this concept that people have, right? And they want to know, am I Pleiadian, and am I Syrian, and do I come from Lyra, and all of these wonderful things. And there's a long answer and a short answer to that question, but I'd love to give the short answer today, and that is, we all come from the same place. We all come from God. And when a person says, oh, I'm Syrian and I'm Pleiadian, what they're saying is the equivalent of me saying, I'm South African, and Paula, you're Canadian, and Magenta, you're from the UK, therefore you are British. Like, that's who you are. Of course, it's not who you are. It's where you live. And that's different. You are not where you live. Where you live can represent you, absolutely. You'll have a great relationship with where you live. But how can it be the definition of you? And so as we begin, I want to remind everybody that we are galactic. Because we spend so much time looking up and out there. And I did as a child. As a child, my fondest, strongest memory, if anybody says, what did you do the most of as a child? It certainly wasn't ballet dancing, and it wasn't schoolwork. It was staring at the sky. Day or night, staring at the sky in wonder for what was out there, because that was my perception. It was all about out there, out there. And it didn't dawn on me then that we're also out there and in here. In other words, we're a part of the same place, the same thing. So separation has seeped into our cognizance for so many generations that it's automated in who we think we are. But as we overcome the idea of separation and begin to view ourselves as also being galactic beings, because guess where we live? We live in a galaxy called the Milky Way. We are also galactic. So these ones with whom we interact, they remind us, they are our reminders of who else we are. They're not our gods. They're not above us. And they spend so much time passing that message to humanity. It was one of the messages that I remember receiving so blatantly and so clearly one night when I had what I had demanded, because I had a tantrum, an absolute tantrum one night. And the tantrum went like this. I said to my husband, so many people have seen UFOs in the sky. So many people have these daily interactions. And like a child, I said to him, and why not me? And I was really upset with the situation, right? And in this kind of tantrum, I remember something coming upon me, and I said, I demand to live in a world where I also get those interactions. And so unknowingly, unwittingly, I put this demand out. Yes, it came from the wounded child who felt very left out, because I'd had all of these interactions psychically. I had all of these interactions, and none of them were in physical. So there's my tantrum throwing moment. And guess what happened? It was about 48 hours later. This phenomenal sighting, literally in my backyard, literally over the garage of my neighbor's roof, which hung over into my backyard. And this phenomenal sighting took place. And you know what happened? I, of all people, now I've worked with the Galactics all my life. Guess what I did? I went into the schoolgirl mode. Ah, they're here. And, you know, the message came through so clearly. The message was, center yourself. Center yourself. We are one. We are the same. And the moment we go into this feverish pitch, as I did, the reminder is, don't go into worshiping. We are not gods. We are one. We are the same. So I learned things through comedy, clearly, but that was my in-person. That was my first in-person encounter. And believe me, I'd had since a kid hundreds. But this was the first time that I could feel their intention was to bring me into a craft in person, in waking. And I nearly blew the moment. But it's important for us to remember, we are galactic beings. We are one. However we get the message, whether you've got to do it foolishly like I did, or whether you're going to do it in grace and in elegance like most other people will hopefully do, the message is the same. And that is, we are all one. And it's okay that we express ourselves in a third density environment. It doesn't make us less. It simply means we're in the process of remembering. And they are the catalysts that when we are in their presence, something in us says, oh, I remember that. That's familiar. That vibratory state. Again, it's not the place. It's not the, oh, you're from Sirius, therefore I now know who I am. It's not that. It's you are a fifth density being, and something in me recognizes that. That's where the sameness comes in, or the oneness comes in. The unity is birthed in those moments that we remember who we are as galactic beings ourselves. That we don't look outside of ourselves. That we don't go into worship. That we go into equality. So I want to start with that because it's one of the most common things that I get asked about galactics and my relationship to them. So hopefully that just sets the conversation off into a direction that others can pick up from.
Okay, so I agree with everything Kerry said. And when I was taking clients, I actually took clients for 7 years. When I look back, I would say if someone said to me, what is the most common question that you are asked? It would be exactly the same. Where am I from? That is the most common question I was asked on an individual level. Not so much when you're not seeing people individually, but when I was seeing people individually, that question would nearly always come up in the session. And I would say pretty much the same thing as Kerry, but perhaps just in a slightly different way. And that is, yes, there are two ways of looking at it. One, we are all from the same place. It's very, very easy to go and see someone, go and see a psychic or clairvoyant or a tarot reader, and often they will tell you where you are from. And they'll say, oh, you're Arcturian, you're Lyran, you're Pleiadian, or they'll say you're from Atlantis, and because people haven't necessarily woken up to their own knowing, they will subscribe to that. And when you do that, you can actually link very closely to that place that you believe that you are from or know that you are from, which is wonderful because you can get a really good individual focused connection with that place. But then it can sometimes prevent you from opening up to the unity and the whole galactic awareness that we are from the 0 point, the oneness, the source, the galaxy. And the majority of starseeds who are aware right now, and I mean aware spiritually as well as being aware to the truth, are connected with all of the planetary systems and star systems. They're connected to a multitude, even on a linear level. Obviously, we're connected to all of them on a galactic level, a unified level. So yes, we're all from the same place. On a more linear level, what I was able to do with individuals was look at them and trace back the linear soul's journey to an inception point, to a place that they were from. Now that lineup from where they were now on that particular date that I saw them, and trace them back to a point, that would change depending on where they were in their own awareness. So that inception point doesn't just mean it's where you're from, it's where your soul is from. It does mean that on a linear level, but it also means it's where you are now and what planetary system you're connecting with. For example, the 9 say to me that I, as Magenta Pixie, am Pleiadian, but they, as the 9, are Arcturian. Yet they, as the 9, are me in the future. So that means I'm Pleiadian now, and I will be Arcturian in the future. So all these planetary systems are to do with vibrational states. And on another level, they're not actually planets. They're time zones, they're dimensions. They are Earth in different realities and different time zones. So from that perspective, there's only one place, one planet, if you will, and all the other planets are reflections of our planet. Just like us 4 here, we're Paula, Kerry, Magenta, and Nina. But when you take a step back from that, we're all the same soul, experiencing different lifetimes in different times. So multiple ways of looking at that. So it's important perhaps to know where you're from, so you can link into that energy and use that energy. And I found that the majority of starseeds were usually from Lyra, the Pleiades, or Sirius. They were the main 3. But sometimes I would see someone and I wouldn't be able to tell. There'd be a sort of a scatter with that linear progression back, because your inception point is a multiple point. So your soul is being created from multiple planetary systems all at once. So to trace the linear line back to one origin point, it's just to do with where you are now. And I often found when I looked at clients, sometimes there'd be a scatter and I couldn't trace the linear line. And then I'd ask the 9 and say, well, I can't tell where this person is from. Can you help me? And they would say, this person's inception point is, and I would be directed to a galaxy light years away, and this strange looking, funny looking planet that I couldn't even perceive. And when I asked the name of this planet, I couldn't even understand the name. So there are just so many galaxies and planets and star systems. It's phenomenal and it's infinite. But the majority of starseeds, because they understand the energies of Pleiades, Sirius, and Lyra, and Pleiades, Sirius, and Lyra are the 3 focused energies that are overseeing the ascension process on Earth right now, which is why we're linking to those planets. And the guidance system will often link to Andromeda or Arcturus or another sort of lesser known star system, because that's the overseeing of the ascension process. So all of these are accurate positions as to where our soul may connect to or originate from, but they're also metaphor in an energetic sense. And then Kerry went on to talk about a sighting, and I went through a very similar journey. I had all these people that had all these amazing experiences, and I had not. I was connecting with the 9 and I was talking to them, but I hadn't seen anything in the physical. And I remember asking the 9, well, why don't I have these experiences? And one of the things they said was a lot of the experiences occur for 2 reasons. One, to raise awareness of extraterrestrial or ultra-dimensional or time-traveling or something outside of the box for the person. And I already had that, so I didn't need to have a sighting to raise that awareness. I already had that awareness through my connection. And 2, there is an energetic shift that takes place in you when you have these sightings. It changes your DNA, changes your perception, changes your energy. It can be life-changing. And I'd already had that as well through my connections with the 9. So instead of, and I understand the demand, because that would be, well, you know, I want this, and I felt like doing that, but I kind of did the opposite. And for me, it was like, you know what, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I have a sighting or not. It's fine. I know you're there. I don't need it. And so I kind of let that go. And I would say it was probably maybe 2 years or longer. And I don't know if any of you remember, but on the 14th of October, I think it was 2008, a channel by the name of Blossom Goodchild released information that this huge light ship would appear on the 14th of October, and everyone across the planet would see it. Now, I've spoken to Blossom, bless her, and she's absolutely lovely. And what I feel is that this was perhaps a physical linear translation of something that was more, could have been seen more metaphoric, but everyone took it literally. Everyone thought a giant light ship was going to fly across the planet, and it was just awful when it didn't actually happen. And I had also asked the Nine, and they spoke to me more about manifestation of this, and that we weren't actually ready to manifest this kind of level of first contact, if you will. However, it could be done, and it was an exercise in manifestation. So I released this information as well, and of course, and loads of other channels and mediums did as well, and we were all completely slaughtered after the 14th of October when it didn't actually happen. People had misinterpreted, they'd taken it literally, so it was a big thing. And you know, I went through my own journey then thinking, well, I didn't think we would see this huge light ship, but I had been told about manifestation and I was working on that. What the Nine were trying to tell me was that this was individual, because literally the next day, on the 15th of October 2008, 24 hours after that big date that Blossom Goodchild had presented, I had two dramatic sightings. One was in the astral, an astral dreamlike lucid dream, where I saw multiple pastel colored UFO spaceship, lightship types of craft with a beautiful energy. And the next day I actually saw that in physical waking life, and I was actually driving in my car, believe it or not. How I managed to not crash the car. So I'm driving, and my son was in the car too, so he saw it as well. And I looked up, and there was this huge bright light quite a long way away, but it was obvious that it wasn't a normal sort of entity or physical celestial body that you would see in the sky. And yeah, I did take my eyes off the road slightly, and I was kind of half looking and half driving, and then it just shot across the sky in a way that no other craft or any sort of celestial body could move. And I knew then, and I was actually told this was a Pleiadian sighting, because I am Pleiadian, so this was like a family connection, which is another reason why individuals have sightings. People have sightings for all sorts of reasons, but one of them is a family connection from that sort of perspective. So for me, the whole Blossom Goodchild prophecy was actually accurate. And I spoke to lots of other people who'd had similar things occur around that time. It just wasn't this huge global massive light ship like she said. So I think important to bring that up, because we're still getting information now about things that might happen and then they don't happen, or things that are presented in a literal way and it turns out to be metaphor, or things that are presented as metaphor and they turn out to be literal. This is happening right now, and I think that that's something important to bring up for any psychic or clairvoyant or channel. I love Blossom Goodchild, by the way. I had lots of contact with her, and she's lovely, and you know, she's beautiful soul, and she just simply brought through the interpretation of what she was told. So yeah, I think that was a huge sort of galactic and universal cosmic lesson for everybody there. So I thought I'd bring that up, because I actually did have a sighting the very next day.
Amazing.
I wrote to her. You know, oh, sorry. I wrote to Blossom. I did write to her.
Oh, you did?
I did. I wrote to her to see if she might like to join us on one of these conversations. I know, Carrie, you were going to add something there, but if I could please share my direct experience. So I've also seen ships, but I had an encounter in my bedroom. So this was back in, I think, 2014, and it was a Tuesday night, and I'd gone to bed. It was 10 o'clock, and my husband was still up, and my youngest boy, he'd gone to bed, and I had just gotten a kitten. And I swear my cat is a Syrian cat. I went to get a roast beef, and I came home with this kitten. I know, it's a story. Anyway, so so I went to bed, and then the kitten woke me up. It was around midnight, or I don't know how long I was asleep, but you know how they step on your chest? And I opened my eyes, and I had 3 beings beside my bed. It was like sort of this height, and then a little one. I can't remember what they looked like, or if there were colors or anything like that. But I remember laying there looking at them and saying, Sean's in the living room, Keegan's in the bedroom, 1, 2, 3, who are you? And they just slowly faded out of view. And I sat up, there was no fear at all, like 0 fear. I just sat up and I was like, that was awesome. Like, who are you? Where did you go? Like, what are you here to tell me? And it was so interesting. I had seen a Q&A with Bashar, you know, the Canadian fellow who channels Bashar. And somebody had asked a question, and that was basically my question got answered. Because I was like, what happened? And his answer was, you're beginning to perceive multidimensionality. And then really quickly, the other one, like around 2008, over a decade ago now, I was taking Reiki, and I remember talking to her saying, I want to see a blue orb. Like, well, what if you don't ever get to see a blue orb? And I was kind of like, Gary, I'm like, well, that's BS. I want to see a blue orb. Why can't I see one? If it's real, why can't I? And it was in the middle of the night. Actually, it was around 2011. It was in the middle of the night, and I rolled over on my pillow, and between my face and my pillow was this little blue orb that basically came like this. And I was like, I remember checking my crystal and looking to see if there was a reflection, like trying to figure out, okay, is this real? And it basically just went through here and through the wall. And I was like, thank you, I got my little blue orb. Anyway, I just had to share that because that was pretty cool.
Beautiful.
Well,
What I wanted to say earlier, oh, sorry, Nina, sorry, we've got this lag, sorry. What I wanted to say earlier, I'll just be very quick, was, you know, Magenta was saying that there's huge value, and I agree with you so completely, and I just wanted to reiterate that there's huge value in getting your soul's lineage and ancestry, and many of you will know it intuitively. And it's the equivalent, using the countries again, it's the equivalent of, let's just say you had amnesia, and you somehow landed up in your country of birth. Of course it's going to do something for you. Of course it's going to feel familiar, and it's going to open up gateways within you. So to bring clarity is always absolutely essential. And also to bring clarity around the way in which contact with our galactic family is preempted. You know, I would hate for somebody to go, oh, that's what Carrie did, therefore that's what you must do. Oh, no, but that's what Magenta did, therefore that's what you must do. It's what you must do. For each individual, it's different, you know. For me, it took the demand, and for somebody else, it might be totally different. For somebody else, it could be a polite, graceful request. And, you know, just bringing through that every person can find and has access to that place within them that has always been connected. Because in truth, our connection to our galactic family was never severed. We just can't always connect to it. It is, however, there. Whether it's used or not used is irrelevant. It is there. And even if just in this moment you bring yourself into cognizance that, wow, that connection still exists, and it's real, and they know me, and they know my name, my galactic family. It stirs something so beautiful in your heart. And the moment the heart is stirred and activated, so you reignite that connection again. But for each person, it's your own journey. That's what I wanted to share. Sorry, Nina, love.
No, that's okay. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So I always, like Carrie, would go outside and look up at the stars, and I would just be like, take me back home. What am I doing here? I feel like I got dropped here. I don't want to be here. I don't fit in here. And so the stars were this knowing that that's home. But I also, when I was growing up, I grew up in the 80s, like I was born in 82. So there was a lot of the abductions going on at that time. Well, you would hear about it all the time. And to be honest, even though the stars were home. And even though I had this connection and I would see the lights and I had a very astral relationship with them, and they would just say, we're your family. And so I felt like, well, this is the place where I came from, and this is where I'm from, and this is my family. And they would often also visit when I had a lot of trauma going on in the environment around me. It would kind of come around me and keep me safe. And so I did realize that there was this very astral relationship where the physical to me wasn't as realistic as what was happening to me in the other realms, because what was happening to me in the physical was not safe. It wasn't loving. It wasn't kind. It didn't make sense to my being. But that other realm made a lot more sense to me, and those beings were so loving, and that made more sense to my being. So I knew that, oh, I'm a bit different than everybody else, but I didn't fully understand it. But I was also very aware when I was hearing about all of these abductions going on and tuning into that there was another type of celestial, well, it's not celestial, but let's just say, more of a reptilian, or even there's been governmental experimentation, but there was this other vibration that my discernment said, no, don't come near me. So I really had to push and pull, and I actually said, you're not allowed to intervene with me. I don't want you to come near me. I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night and have you standing over me, because I really feel like something in me realized that I was in danger of that, because I felt that as a child, that I was being watched, and I was. So I never had experiences like that, but something eerie did happen. And my mother didn't tell me for years. We were out in Arizona driving very, very late at night, and my sister and I were in the back seat. And it was probably 3 a.m. We were on the road on a road trip. So we were asleep in the back seat. And she didn't tell me this for years, but she said that a huge ship, physicalized, physical ship, not astral ship, like the stories that people tell when they're out in the middle of the desert and all of a sudden a ship is tracking them, was behind the car, and it was following the car, and it did not feel good to her. She was watching the clock to make sure that the time was the same, because she had learned about these things. And she also had taught me, and she was aware that anytime any spirit or anything is trying to interact with you, and if it will not reveal who it is, or it won't reveal itself in the name of Christ or God, you have permission to say, from the God of my being or from the source of my being to yours, you're not allowed to interact with me, and you must go away. So she kept saying that out loud. And it took a little while, but it finally left. So when I tune into that, I don't get the best feeling, to be totally honest. And I know that a lot of friends that I know have had some what I would call scary experiences. And so I realized that there's really been this attack to attack the starseeds, to attack the sensitives, to cause us to fear that which we are, because it was presented in an inverted manner. I'm even going to go, I'd like to talk about this. I think this is really dangerous, and it's something that I've been wanting to talk about. I understand there's groups of women that have been supposedly being abducted and having sex with these beings, and they think that they're bringing in the new starseed nation. And that is so dangerous. That is absolutely not the way that we as celestial galactics operate. That's something entirely different, and you've been absolutely tricked and fooled. Those are entities, those are inverted energies. That's often what I see is it's very reptilian energy. And I work with a lot of women and men who have these contracts to be baby makers or to assist these beings or to be their sex slaves. And so what's happening is a lot of it's happening in the astral. And I had to work on that with myself too, because I would have moments in dreams where I would actually have them coming in saying, will you help us procreate? Will you help us? And I would say no. But I had to keep saying no because they kept coming into my dreams. So I know that's all very, very real. And that is something that is different than what we're discussing here. And I just want to clarify that. So what I feel we're discussing here is we're really talking about us. it really is us in the future and now and the past. If it's operating on a quantum level, which it is, we are walking stargates, and all of our chakras and all of our energetic system, when it is operating in alignment completely with source, with that quantum energy, it has the ability to ignite, and through the ascension process, we are birthing the ascension process through us as we are unifying together, unifying with that connection. But they really are not, they're not gods, they're not above us, they are us, we are them. And we're just reminding ourselves, oh yeah, that's right, I came here on a mission. I'm a galactic being. I'm not just confined to this planetary earthliness, and I'm here because I'm a part of a beautiful awakening of the remembrance of sovereignty, and I came to assist in setting Gaia free, and she's choosing this because she is a starship. And when I think about it that way, it just, I feel at home. You know, there's no fear, there's no sense of they're above me or they have more intelligence than I do. I often feel in a way that the way that I channel them is actually me from the future channeling myself as the awakened starseed that I am. Sometimes I'll even see myself, you know, as in that form, like, oh, that's future 5D Nina. And I've been visited by us and by the Galactic Federation of Light, by the Galactics. And people are like, well, what is that like? What do they look like? And I'm like, well, it's us. It's not like this separate thing, guys. It's us. And I've had astral experiences with the ships, and it's us. And it's like, hi, me. Oh, hi. We're getting closer to each other, to this reunion soon of coming into alignment. So I think that's hard for people to understand because it really is a quantum understanding. And that's what we're expanding to at this time in our own consciousness, is we're constantly operating on so many levels. There's no past, present, or future. It's all happening now. And the more that you align in that, and the more that you're reading the different timelines and able to jump into these quantum spaces, you're going to become in your being more able to have connections with this future aspect of yourself, which we're calling the galactics. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I had one dream where, oh gosh, it was so quick, but it was like I was in a smaller ship, landing in a larger ship. You know how there's like a docking ability, you know? And I remember like, that was like a really high tech dream. Like everything was, wow. You know, you wake up and you're like, what did I just see? You know, what did I just experience? That was cool.
Yeah, I agree with everything Nina said, and it's really important to bring in that other perspective about this can be perceived in a very dark way. I used to have lots of clients that would come to me that had had alien abduction type experiences. Sometimes these are false screens for their mind to be able to understand that they've actually visited home, and then they needed some kind of activation, so it was benevolent. And in other cases it was very much a targeting of the starseed, a prevention, because what's happening on Earth is happening in the astral realms as well, in the fourth dimension, on other planets, if you will. Everything that we're seeing right now, this whole crumbling of the system, the fall of the cabal, the bringing down of the dark, the exposure of all the things that they have done, this is a multi-leveled story, a multi-leveled exposure. So if something is occurring on the physical level, harm of others, prevention of their growth, that's happening in the fourth dimension as well. So it's important to present that. So I do agree with everything Nina said there. That was extremely accurately presented, and I think it's an important perspective to present. Often as well, I would see a client who would perceive the experience as being very frightening, but when we looked deeper, it turned out that actually It was more of a false screen, and it was a benevolent experience. And sometimes it wasn't, but it was in the sense that it triggered the shadow and triggered an awareness within themselves. So like Nina says, it's all us. When we look at these galactic beings, they're us in other time zones in the future. But even the darker beings, the alien abductions, which were a prevention of growth and a targeting and an attack, often there was some kind of positive experience there because it triggered an awakening of the shadow, or it triggered a memory. So the idea here is whatever experience you have, and any awakening, spiritually awakening being is going to have dark experiences. It's not just all love and light and fluff and beauty. We go down into the shadow as well. And so when we're working with the shadow self within us, it can be experienced as an outside force. So anyone who is in this movement will have gone through that. But that's all part of the awakening as well. Like I said, that's what's happening here in the third dimension. We can't wake up to the truth of what's happened in our reality without looking at the dark stuff and finding out what's been going on. And it's the same in a spiritual awakening within the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension. Obviously, once we get to the fifth dimension, we've integrated that fourth dimensional aspect of self. We've worked with the shadow. Then we come into an integrated wholeness and start moving into a unity. But we need to go through an understanding of the levels that are fully aligned with source and as far away from source as you can possibly get. This is what we're looking at, these two polarities of pure connection and absolute separation, and everything in between is part of that journey. I mean, I've had experiences, you know, they're all personal and part of my journey, but I've had experiences where I've had dreams where I've been locked in a cage, I couldn't get out. I had a being walking around me, just looked like a normal human being. But when I started to go into a dialogue with this being, it turned out that this being was the devil, and I was locked in fear, and the fear would lock me in the cage. I couldn't get out of this. And when I would wake up, that being was still there even when my eyes were opened. So it would send me into, this is years and years ago in my early awakening, send me into such paranoia and fear and an inability to integrate this huge experience. Luckily, I had my father. He was a hypnotherapist. He was my mentor. I could go to him, even though he would look at me in a more psychological way and say, oh, you look like you're on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and you know, you need to start becoming more focused in the real world and forget what's going on in that realm. Or he'd take me into hypnosis. It still helped me. My father would give me like a sort of a foundation, and then I'd go away and then work through it. But I then got to the point, maybe, I don't know, a decade later, where I'd go back and visit that being that trapped me in a cage and thank it. Thank you for this experience. And then that being would transform, and it would be an ascended master in beautiful golden robes, because the energies of light and positive polarity are just the other reflection of the energies in a service to self polarity. That's the this complete unification with source and this total separation from source. That's the representative of that within an inner world, astral world, multidimensional sense within us. That's all who we are. And those tools are there to assist us in our own awakening and our own memory. And that is what is playing out in the third dimension. That's exactly the same thing. You have beings of light and positivity and beauty, and you have these service to self individuals who are doing these heinous things and committing crimes against the rest of humanity. And we're all at various levels of working this out. And we have to look at the whole thing multidimensionally. We have to look at the third dimensional story and situation, third dimensionally, fourth dimensionally, fifth dimensionally, and all the other dimensions. It's not an easy path to actually go through an awakening. The Great Awakening is not necessarily something where you know nothing one day, you learn a few truths, you realize you're fully woke, and then that's it. You've landed in some kind of enlightenment or some kind of truth or wisdom. It's an ongoing journey that takes place outside of our lifetimes. And that's, as Nina said, that's who the Galactics are. They're us in an evolved state, in an integrated state, and in various stages of that. And there are those that are non-physical that are not evolved, and you can meet spirit beings that are not as evolved as you, and you will teach them. If you are a spiritual teacher, you're not just going to be teaching people in physical, you'll be helping beings of all types, and it's a journey that if you do not have an anchor, if you do not have a core, you will be lost, and you can become paranoid, schizophrenic, you know, go completely insane or crazy and lose it. It's okay to be like that for a while, because you can't go through these experiences and sail through them in the early days. Like I said, I would go crazy with all of this and go and see my father, and I'd have 2 or 3 days where I'd be breaking down. But I moved through it. I found a way through. I found a way to look back and integrate. So that core is so important. Now, in the early days of awakening, that core might be another person. It might be a mentor. It might be a parent. It might be a partner. It might be someone you're watching on the internet. I didn't have the internet back then when I was awakening, but luckily, as I said, I did have my father. But the core ultimately is you in full, balanced, integrated state. If you look forward into the aspect of yourself that is, if you will, an ascended master, a galactic being, you can talk about galactic chakras, or you could talk about the activation of the full DNA template. It's all the same thing. If you can access that core, and the 9 call this the pillar of light, the vertical axis, that's the first foundation. You then move into the horizontal axis and find the core within the middle of that cross. But the first point is the vertical axis. If you can imagine a pillar of light is standing straight up and straight down, and you're in the middle of that pillar, that is your core. And there are many other visualizations you can use. That's only one. And as long as you have that core, that will bring you back to the central point with everything, so that if something is happening outside of the physical world, you don't subscribe to it as a belief. So I wouldn't say to you, the 9 are 9 white-winged beings. That's what they are. They live in the 5th dimension or 6th dimension, 7th dimension. That's who they are. They are angelic extraterrestrial beings. And that's it. That may be true, but what else are they? Let's look at what else they are, and what else they are, and what else they are. Because if you subscribe to that one belief system, you don't open yourself to all of the other belief systems. And if we're talking about going galactic is going multidimensional. It is looking at multiple perspectives simultaneously and taking a paradoxical consciousness. And this is happening in the 3rd dimension. Someone might say, children have been rescued. Thousands and millions of children have been rescued from these underground tunnels, and they've all been saved by Donald Trump, and they're on these huge ships, Comfort and Mercy. So, oh, great, that's wonderful. I'm going to subscribe to that belief. The children are there. So that may well be true it may actually be happening. But where is your, I won't say proof, but where is your evidence to suggest that that's the case? Is it a knowing? Is it a vision? Is it a dream? Did a being tell you? Did you have evidence of this in the physical level? Did someone who works on the ships tell you about this? Do you know? Did you see photographs? You work with all of this evidence on every single level, and you come back to the core. Without the core, you'll subscribe to this, and then, oh, that's not true after all. But we are going from 3D to 5D, and we're ascending in 3 weeks' time. 3 weeks come by, oh, I haven't ascended yet. What went wrong there? You're all over the place with all these beliefs, and it's happening on multiple levels, right across 3D, right across multidimensionality.
It's
back
time.
to
It's time.
yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Why am I yet?
So you come back to that core of self, which is a groundedness. It's an anchoring into the physical realm so that you don't lose yourself. You stay pragmatic. you analyze the evidence that you have, even if that evidence is non-physical, but that pillar goes up. It's a never-ending pillar. It's infinite. You get to the highest point. There is no direction. There is no highest point. You're fully in source. So when you take that pillar gives you everything, and the core becomes 0 point. You can then look critically with a third dimensional brain at multidimensional concepts. And that's how you work out discernment and alignment and truth. And that is crucial right now, more than it ever has been on this planet since the beginning of our known history. The last time it was this crucial was Atlantis. It's potentially equally as crucial now because we are going through another Atlantis period. It's different this time because we have different technology and different things are occurring, but we are going through a very similar journey. Atlantis, as we know, in most timelines fell, not in all. It did not fall in all timelines, but in the timeline that we have as our memory in our history, it fell. We are now looking at a future that's not that. We are not going to fall in most of the timelines. So we need to remain within that core space. And going galactic isn't just about connecting with other beings in ships or presentations of experiences. It's multidimensionality. It's galactic consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I would add to that, agree with everything you said. Well, we're really losing our identity, right? We're forgetting, or we need to forget that we have, you know, the personality accumulates all of these experiences to justify the personality, right? And I think we're what the guides are teaching us. These are my guides, which is through Paul Selig, my main teachers. They taught, number one, they said that we are going to start witnessing fear masquerading as cruelty, and fear is of God, but it's forgotten. It doesn't know that it's part of God. And so there was that part, and then I just completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, about the whole identity. We think we're human, and we've been masquerading, I guess you could say, as human beings, that we're these.
I think it's a double perspective, because everything you said is true. We're losing our identity. We're losing the identity that we ever knew. But if we allow ourselves to stay lost in the fragmented loss of identity, we're lost. We come back to the core, and what we do is we give ourselves more identity than we've ever had. So we take both of those. We come into an identity, and when we say we're not human, that's true. We're losing that humanness. We're becoming galactic beings, which is more than human and very different from human. But we also take the viewpoint where we never were truly human in the first place. If you look at what the template is galactically, we finally come into our humanity more than ever before. So we take both of these. That's why I say use the core as the pillar, because you take the highest point, the highest perspective, and you bring that right down into the real world. So we are absolutely becoming more human than ever. So it's always looking, well, I have this perspective. What's the absolute opposing perspective to that? And let's take both of these, and then you're in paradoxical consciousness, which is multidimensionality.
Yeah, it's actually really cool to hold multiple perspectives. It's like you can have a conversation with yourself, like, from, you know, well, from this point of view, this is the case. But then again, if I look at it this way, it's like how many of us are in here? You know, how many have I got in here? That's awesome.
But it's also about coming into the knowing, right? So it's like having all of these perspectives. And Magenta, you describe it so beautifully when you talk about the core. It's that place of knowing, however it arrives for each person. I think one of the most critical, most imperative things to do right now is to anchor ourselves within that knowing that is our own. And on the topic of identity, you know, if you think about it, so much of our identity was handed to us. So we were told as kids, We were formed, molded, and then used mistakenly the words that said, oh, this is who I am, which really just were a confirmation of the molds that we had been formed to. So in many regards, our identity was given to us. And that's the identity that we're losing, the false identity.
Mhm.
And the identity that we're claiming is the most gorgeous thing imaginable, because the true self is everything that we ever wished we could be and more. But it does take that grounding within and an expansion without, the expansion into the who and what else we are as individuals. So often we have these dream time conversations. And I would love for those listening to really pay attention to those dream time conversations and to take heed of what is said in those dream time conversations. Because what I know of is a huge ongoing project from the Galactic Federation, whereby human beings, those of us who are activated, ready, star seeds, whatever you want to call us, we've been having contact, preparation contact, at night, in dream space. You could call it night school, you could call it your dream school, whatever you want to. But there's all, people talk about, oh, when is contact going to happen? Contact has been happening for years. But we have to connect with that within ourselves that's capable and worthy and equal to that contact. And so the grounding in yes, the expanding out into the who and what else we are, yes, so that we can begin to receive those dream time interludes in our everyday waking state, because so much information is being given that the brain thankfully can't keep track of it all. The brain is not meant to keep track of it all. I remember conversations, early conversations between myself and the Galactics. And I very vulnerably one day said, I don't think I'm equal to this task. And I was young. I think I was still a teenager. I was still in school. And I said, I don't think I'm equal to this task. And one of the main beings who I've worked with since time immemorial, he said to me, why? And I said, well, because I don't think I'm that clever. I don't think I'm intellectually capable of maintaining the teachings you're giving me, the information you're relaying to me. And guess what his response was? He said, good, you're not meant to be, because this left brain of yours is not where the wisdom that we interact with is held.
Mm.
And so he showed me, one of the first times that I received a full body activation was through him showing me this is where wisdom actually is. It was this experience of engaging with what I call the who and what else you are that is surrounding the physical form, and realizing, wow, that's me too. And this is wisdom as well. It's not just this, it's this invisible form around me that I can perceive and feel into and communicate from. Now, this is important because as we prepare ourselves for contact and realize we've been having contact for so long, one of the important things that we must overcome is we're living on a planet, if you think about it, where we have very high consciousness beings, dolphins, whales, elephants, baboons. I worked with baboons for many years, and they've been phenomenal teachers to me. And one of the amazing things that the baboons taught me was, you human beings are so focused on wanting to connect to these very wise extraterrestrials. You want to have that contact, they said. And you can't even connect with the animals in your own backyard. You can't even connect with the other species in your own backyard. So why don't you start there? Why don't you start with reverence for yourself so that you can have reverence for other life? Why don't you bring yourself into equality with us so that you know what equality with an Arcturian, for example, would feel like? And I was like, wow, yeah, absolutely. So we can learn to have contact with these non-terrestrial terrestrials in our everyday life. It could be your dogs, it could be your cats, it could be a cow in a field. But make no mistake, we are having contact with other species on an ongoing basis. But what if we came into awareness of those conversations? So pay attention to dreams, start connecting to self in that expansive way, absolutely anchored, absolutely expansive, and then become aware of the other conversations with the other beings that are taking place. Broaden who you think you are. We're at that place. Paula, it's where you and I started speaking today. We were saying, we're at that place in our ascension process that we kind of knew was going to happen, but it seemed that it wasn't going to. We're at that place. But act like we're at that place.
Absolutely. I feel like what is happening a lot in the sessions that I'm doing, people are wanting us to be able to explain something that is actually multidimensional and quantum. They want us to fit it into a 3D understanding and a 3D box, and it's not possible. And when you can understand that and see it, okay, I've been operating thinking that being human means that I'm in this 3D matrix and I'm limited in these ways and my mind is limited in these ways. And if I step out of that, I'm labeled as crazy or insane or rejected by society. If you can step out of that, because now we're ascending out of that, we're realizing what that 3D matrix truly was, that it was meant to, it was us in a way reflecting to ourselves, this is the polar opposite of what I actually am, so that we would learn. And this is an incredible classroom. We set it up this way. Everybody's just playing their roles within that. But if we can see this from a higher perspective, the ascension process is about the awakening on all levels, on the mental, spiritual, physical, emotional level. So, wow, perhaps it means that being human actually means galactic. Maybe I'm expanding my understanding of things. And what I'm seeing that's really cool right now is the transparency of our galactic nature is starting to really shine through people. You can start to see it more in their physicality, in their way of expressing themselves. And I feel like that's because we're almost becoming braver. The starseeds are getting more comfortable about stepping forward and saying, I've been hiding who I really am my whole life because I was afraid that if I came out, I would be killed or I would be targeted. And the truth is a lot of us were. So now we've been told it's safe to come out. It's safe to shine your galactic nature. And as we're all stepping out together and doing that, it's so cool because we're naturally beginning to operate on these higher levels with each other and remembering our codes and remembering our future selves and how we interact with each other. And we're operating more on this starseed psychic level and communicating on this very galactic level with each other. But it doesn't fit into a 3D context. So that ideas of, well, when is the event going to happen and when are they going to arrive? It doesn't work like that. It's already happening. The solar flashes are already happening. If you're able to open your third eye, it's already happening. A lot of us are already receiving intel directly from our future galactic self saying, go do this today, or go, that happens to me. I get sent on little missions. And it just has to do with raising the vibration on the planet. And we wrote all of this for ourselves. So it's not that somebody outside of you who has more power than you is telling you what to do. It's not that I'm giving my power away to the Galactic Federation of Light. It's that I realized that I wrote into my being, I am a part of the Galactic Federation of Light. I just woke up to that remembrance. I woke up from that amnesia. And on that day that my higher self or that galactic self is I'm essentially channeling, it's me channeling my future self saying, hey, do you remember that today you were going to go do this and sing in light language and go by the ocean and amplify the Stargate? But it's because that's something that I wrote into my being, and I'm just remembering that. But it's not that someone is more powerful than me or they need to save me, because that is just not how it works. And as we are raising our vibration, we're getting closer to that harmonic convergence. And that is really what this great event and this awakening and this ascension process is all about. So it's important for people to not start giving their power away. I had a beautiful dream years ago that is like the most beautiful dream I've ever had. And I still feel that this is going to occur. But I have this dream, we could maybe say it's the peaking of the event. And in the dream, there's so many people gathered on a huge beach in front of an ocean. And it could be symbolic. I think it's a bit physical too, because I'm being led towards the beach and the ocean. And a lot of people are right now. But everyone was lined up. And what was amazing is that when the ships were coming in, they didn't look like ships. And this is what was really fascinating to me. Instead, they were orbs of light. And they were orbs of light that were very familiar to us. And they were blinking. And they were not huge. And as they were coming near us, they were kind of like visiting each of us. But the orb that resonated with you, it was like you had a master key code, galactic key code in your own heart, because your heart is a stargate. And as that light was meeting your heart stargate, it was lighting up together. And through that lighting up, it was revealing the galactic codes. And then your galactic codes were a match to each other. So what I really understand this as is, as our chakras are aligning, as we're learning to operate on a higher chakra level, and all of these individual chakra stargates into the master heart stargate are aligning and opening and activating, which is the pillar of light that Magenta is speaking about. We are activating our own ability to remember that we are stargates. We are the stargate. They talk about the Merkaba. That's exactly what it is. We have the ability to remember and to know that we are stargates, and we're on a very large stargate. So the galactic experience doesn't have to happen outside of you, because it really isn't happening outside of us. It's actually happening inside of us. And that just, I love that, because when you experience it in that way, you're like, oh my gosh, it's not in the future. It's not far away. It's not something I have to wait for. It's happening now. I'm a part of it. It's in my body. I am that star being here on this starship in this galaxy. So I think that it can bring a lot of peace to starseeds that might feel like, I miss home. It's like, no, that's what we're awakening to. We are awakening to the fact that right now this is home, because we're connected to all of it always. And Gaia is now, we're seeing all of it just with new lenses of galactic eyes.
So on that note, I want to go back to what Carrie and I were talking just before we all got on here about. So we're beginning to witness, right? Disclosure is across the board, all the things that were hidden in shadow. And this whole reveal it's the end of separation. It's truly the divine union, the return of oneness, and us claiming I am an aspect of Creator. So before we all got all gathered here, Carrie was sharing a little story. And as you were saying too, right, we're beginning to witness the star seeds in each other. You can't hide the truth anymore. And so Carrie, can you tell that little story that you were sharing about the person?
Sure, the
human being to the lizard to the, tell that, because people, you know, as they start to witness the corruption and whatnot, people are going to be appearing a little differently. So let's dig into that a little bit so that folks are prepared to be coming to.
Yeah, so this is about, exactly as Paula said, the revelation of self. And the human journey, the 3D human journey, has been so much about, I want to be this, or I want to be that, you know, the images that we wanted to uphold. But what we're stepping into is not about what I want to be. It's about who I am in essence, and living and claiming that true core identity. That happens for us almost without us even trying to. Simply by being alive right now, we're burning off the old, the untruths, the distortions, that which you are not. All of the false identity, along with the false matrix, is burning off so that the true self is revealed. But that applies to all. So this interesting story that I was sharing with Paula was, a client of mine has for many generations been visited by extraterrestrials, and for her it's been very unwelcome. She holds a lot of fear about them, but this often happens in lineages, right, where we have the grandmother and the great-grandmother and the daughter and the daughter's daughters all being visited, all having these visitations. And that's because very often there's a lineage that's being traced and followed through by these non-terrestrial families. Nonetheless, something in her granddaughter was clearly very visible. She was out and about. If I remember correctly, she was at a deli or something along those lines, out and about in a busy city with her boyfriend, when all of a sudden a person approached, and the granddaughter said if her boyfriend hadn't been there, she would have really second guessed whether or not she saw what she saw. And what she saw was what appeared to be a human with human eyes shapeshift in front of her to suddenly be reptilian eyes. And there was a human eye, reptilian eye. And it was kind of backwards and forwards between these two visuals, obviously in the same person. And then she said she noticed it on the skin, where it appeared underneath the skin, that the skin suddenly became translucent. And beneath the skin, she could see scales, lizard scales. And I can't tell you how this particular family is so in fear of all things dark and so-called demonic and evil. And the irony, of course, is that they have been pursued and followed through so many generations. They clearly stand out to such a degree that another one who was clearly of ill intent came, saw that light, and approached that light in the granddaughter along with her boyfriend. And the interesting thing is, both the granddaughter and the boyfriend began vomiting. They were very ill afterwards. When they walked away, they felt that they'd been in a trance. It was a very negative experience for them. But the takeaway from it is this. The takeaway is we can no longer hide who we are. All is being revealed. It can be no more hiding. Where the dark at one point had power, because it was hidden, it no longer has the power. It simply cannot maintain itself anymore. So what was happening in that experience was a phase shifting, where normally a being like a phase shifting reptilian, for example, would be able to maintain themselves outside of our visible spectrum. This was no longer possible. So the being was phasing in and out. And I said to this client of mine, expect that a lot. Expect to see more of that, where we not only are we becoming more visible to ourselves and to each other as the truth of who we are, so too are others becoming more visible to us, which is not a negative thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's like, okay, I see you. I see you, and because I see you, I now can't be misled by you. I can't be fooled by you. I can now see with my absolute human eyes what's right in front of me, which is where humanity's been blindsided before. So yeah, a scary story, but at the same time, a very beautiful thing is happening on our planet right now. We're a part of this monumental shift in consciousness, where we are reverting to our true nature, the great reveal. We're the great reveal. We're the best kept secret from our own selves. So the revelations that are taking place, the ultimate of all those revelations are, oh, that's who I am. For each one of us, we're going to have that moment of, oh, that's who I am. So yeah, that was the story that I was sharing with you, Paula, before we started talking. And we were both saying the same thing, how this is where we're living right now. This is the planet we're living on right now. I think it's beautiful.
Mm.
I think that's another reason why we need that core to come back to, because when we have these experiences, if we aren't aware that this is, you know, normal within an awakening, then we do go into fear, because we're trapped in this sort of third dimensional viewpoint that these things are not possible. And everyone is being gently and somewhat not so gently brought out of that third dimensional box. Many in the lower fourth dimensional reality, so all the fear and the confusion and darkness that they may never have known before, and everything shifting and changing, and then moving through that fourth dimensional reality. And that will involve a psychic sight, and that can be perceived as, and even be physical sight, or feeling, just like Kerry was explaining. The child and the boyfriend felt like they wanted to vomit. They were vomiting because they felt that energy. So yes, this is normal when coming into contact with these different frequencies. I mean, I see amazing psychic sight, clairvoyant sight now when I'm looking at certain individuals in a much clearer way than I ever have, with all this energy that's occurring right now and this great awakening. And what's happening at the moment with the waking up of everyone from that third dimensional reality into a fourth dimensional reality, and many are going straight into the middle harmonic of the fourth. They're not staying in fear. They are the ones that are going straight into empowerment. That's the indigo revolution. That energy acts as a booster signal for someone like myself, Kerry, and Nina, and you, Paula, to raise even higher with our frequency. And I find when I'm watching some people on videos or television or whatever, I will see very clear imprints behind them now, more than ever before. So beings, but often it will be an aspect of themselves. Like I watch Kaylee McEnany. Now when she speaks, to me she has wings that extend so high and are so strong and white and light. Now I know that that's a metaphor, that she's one of the good people, but these wings are very real when I see them. And I see them every time she comes on and starts speaking. So I was watching her and I was seeing these wings, and it had happened so many times. So when Donald Trump came on afterwards, I thought, well, has he got wings? And I was looking, but there were no wings there with him. But what I saw around him were two large wolves, very big ones. So metaphorically, we're looking at an extension of him, as in self-preservation, protection, strength, the warrior, one who's connected with the natural world in a dynamic way, but not necessarily angelic like Kaylee. So we are going to be seeing these things. I mean, obviously I've seen these things for many years, and I'm sure you all have as well. But they are becoming clearer. We are getting that indigo revolution ping into the higher realms. So that awakening keeps us in even more of a higher dimensional consciousness. But this is going to be happening to so many people across the board. And so they're waking up, and the minute they wake up to truth, if you will, oh, this has been happening behind the scenes, this is what the government are doing, this is what David Icke says, and I agree with him, all of a sudden their dreams change. They start seeing shape-shifting or wings or beings or fairies. There's a spiritual awakening going on as well, because that's there in the harmonics of the fourth dimension. And so we need that core. we come back to that anchor, and we can use the pillar of light as that visualization to anchor us back and say to ourselves, this is normal. This is my birthright. One thing I will say about what I've been seeing psychically is right back in March, when we first heard about the corona and the you know, the lockdown, lock up, whatever, the energetic from the service to self energy was incredibly strong. It was almost like, we are now coming in, we are coming out of the shadows, we're showing you who we are, and we are coming for you, we are going for you, we are going to change your infrastructure on every level, and you are moving into a new world order reality, and we are going to control you. It was very powerful, and I struggled to find the light. I'm saying to the 9, what is this? What is this? And they were saying to me, we're showing you this because this is what it would look like if this was an actual takeover. Please know that this is not a takeover, nor will it ever be a takeover. It is an attempted planetary takeover. But I had to see that, that forceful attacking energy. I had to feel it to know what it was, so I could recognize it and understand that this is an intention. And this isn't just an intention physically. This is a magical intention that's been worked for thousands of years. But now, in August 2020, and I'm not saying that this is going to remain, we're going through some real intense times in September and October and early November. We are going through some intense times. But right now, at the end of August, I struggle to find and see that attacking energy, because the awakening has overtaken it. And it sent this attacking energy into a scatter. Like, how do we continue to maintain this plan when we have light here, we have light here, we need to keep a lid on this, and we need to keep a lid on this, and we need to shut down the QAnon, and we need to shut down, infiltrate the spiritual, get in here, and they can't hold that attempted planetary takeover that they thought was a planetary takeover. That was the plan, that was the intention. They can't hold that energy. And as Kerry said, the only way they can operate is in secrecy. It has to be hidden. They can't do it otherwise. It is no longer hidden. It hasn't been hidden for a long time. We've already reached critical mass before this awakening even occurred. We reached critical mass for awareness before Corona. And now that awakening is absolutely huge. And as we were saying before you started recording, Paula, we have these demonstrations going on all over the world. We had huge demonstrations in London yesterday. I think there were 40,000 people in London, in Trafalgar Square. David Icke was speaking live to this, you know, huge following. And I know that this is happening all over and set to yet more. So the protests that were so dark and negative and infiltrated have flipped. And I was actually looking at the protests, you know, a couple of months ago, and seeing all the infiltration, thinking this isn't even a real protest. These people are paid. These people have been told what to do. These are, you know, sort of like a kind of a military stroke ninja type of energy that have been trained to do this job. Where are the real protesters? And now I'm looking and thinking, these are the real protesters. This isn't a controlled. This is the people. This is the Indigo Revolution. This is the voice of the people. And it's drowned out that other darker energy. Now, obviously, they're going to make another step. This is 5D chess, that we're all on this huge 5D chessboard. They're going to make another step. They're going to come in again, but we're counteracting it. And that core energy that I'm talking about will give you the grounding to be able to see all this physically, literally, but astrally and non-physically, without losing that focus, without going into this utter confusion, which takes you down into the lower fourth. You have no anchor there. If you have that pillar of light and that anchor and that core, you can come back to that and make sense of everything you're seeing. And that is so important for the star seeds. Anyone who's not spiritually aware or psychic or empathic probably won't really know what I'm talking about, but there are so many that are now, and they can help those that are just waking up, and then they can find their core. Where we're going is hundreds and thousands of people who know what this means. And the 9 actually said to me, by the middle of 2022, the amount of people that are awake, and I don't just mean awake to the truth in the 3rd and 4th dimension, I'm talking about spiritually aware 5th dimensional consciousness. By the middle of 2022, the amount of people in that 5D consciousness will have more than doubled. I know that that's not next year. I would have liked it to have been sooner, but it's a wave that has to take time. We're looking at people who are completely asleep to all of this. They have to go through the 4th dimensional awakening to truth first and have the cabal crash down and the restructuring and all of that. Then we're moving into this huge spiritual awakening where the spiritual is no longer fringe and on the surface and backdoor information. It's in the fore. And those that are in the spiritual movement are no longer some sort of fringe speaker on the backdoor media. They are the front door media. They are the faces that the people will want to see. They are the voices that people want to listen to. And half of them haven't even woken up yet. We're going to see a huge wave of awakening of people who step up and speak and present their stories and help another whole wave of individuals to wake up. So by the middle of 2022, those in 5D consciousness have more than doubled. And that's the timeline we're on. And, you know, it could occur earlier, but there are these different waves to the awakening, if you know what I mean. And that's a wonderful goal to see and to know. And it's like, well, okay, we're going to go through some tough times. And yeah, it's going to be really sort of challenging over the next 2 or 3 months or so. But look where we're going next year. Look where we're going after that. Look where we're going after that. And we can draw that into us now and find that energy now if we have that core, because that core pillar of light is a 0-point pillar. So there's no time. Whatever's in the future is actually here now for those people who can anchor that core. But I'm hearing some wonderful information here today. Really, really fantastic.
I want to add to that for the listeners, how they get tapped into that core is through their heart. That gateway, that's the stargate to source. And when you, exactly to your point, when you know, the small self thinks, the divine self knows, when you know who you are, you always find peace no matter what is going on in the external world. It won't matter, because you can come into this inner kingdom of heaven is within first, right? You claim it within your own being first, and then it has to manifest. So what you're saying, Magenta, totally makes sense, right? How do you go from in a deep sleep to, holy shit, nothing is what I thought it was, right? That takes a little bit of a walk for our brothers and sisters. But for those that are listening, find your, what the guides say is it's the echo. When you know who you are, you know who everybody else is, and you claim them in their divinity, and then you're rewarded, because I can feel it in my breastplate, in my chest. And if I could bottle that feeling, we'd all be gajillionaires, because it feels so good. So good.
Wow. This is so inspiring, and I feel like it's going to bring a lot of peace to a lot of people's hearts. And when we understand that every attempt of attack is really an aspect of us that's shown up in the form of an attack to say, okay, this isn't your next lesson, or I like to say it's another initiation, then we can see that it's an opportunity and look for the light that is hidden in the darkness. And that's one of the biggest messages that the Galactics have brought through to me, is there is so much light in what you perceive as darkness. It's shown up to show you where you have asked to grow and to evolve. You've asked for things. You asked to step in, to play a certain role. You've asked for certain things. All of you on a collective level, you're ready for these things. So this shadow, as all of these people outside of you, this projected shadow has shown up to be the reflection of where you need to look to take this to do the work, to do the inner work, to see these things, to see this aspect of the collective consciousness, to make new choices, to become sovereign. And every single attempt is really just going to accelerate the ascension and the awakening process. So if we can see it this way, like I'm really perceiving at this time, there's going to be probably some type of a second, there's going to be a second wave cabal attempt. It's coming. I'm seeing it. I don't want to spread fear, Magenta. Maybe you can speak to that too, but it's been coming through to me more and more. We're looking pretty soon, actually. We're looking like September, October. This is coming, but it's going to be used to wake up those individuals that are still very much in denial. And I'm not seeing that this second wave attempt is going to be happening the same everywhere. It's really going to be a state by state situation. And that those that are in those states, and it really looked to be more, the red states are going to be not hit by this so much. It's going to be more the blue states. I'm seeing more like Chicago, California, New York City, certain areas in Europe where they're still very much vibrationally needing these lessons, which is why some of us are being pulled out of certain areas because we don't need those lessons. For that, we're already awake. We don't need to go through those experiences. But certain souls have written it a very difficult way of awakening. They need these very, very hard lessons. And karmically, that's what they've chosen. And because they're sovereign, they get to choose that. So this is going to be happening. And we need to understand that this doesn't mean, oh, you guys are all so full of it. It's scary. It's awful. It's terrible. The cabal is winning. No, it's going to be a very harsh second wave in order to wake people up that were not waking up, that need it. So the intensity of the lesson is what is needed to intensely shake certain people to the point that they are able to surrender finally and surrender to their ego. A lot of them, what I'm seeing is they maybe deny source completely. There might be a very strong anger there, and they need to get shaken to their cores. A lot of us don't need that. We do not need that. So also on top of that, I've spoken to this a bit, but really, if you're getting told to leave a certain area right now, it's not because you need to leave there forever, but please leave, because what's coming may not be what you need to go through. And that environment's going to go through a very hard time, and you don't need that. Other people do. I know a lot of people that need that. It was really what I was told was, Nina, leave Paris, because what is coming here, you don't need to go through. You're already awake. We're putting you in a safe place. We're putting you into the role that you need to play to help others. But these people, they need this, which is why your consciousness and theirs has never really fit together. The things that you talk about, they think you're ridiculous. They hate God. They think God is a fairy tale for children. You don't need this lesson. You don't need to be brought to your knees in fear. You don't need to see, oh my God, what if, the world was taken over, or what if reality came to a standstill? You don't need this. But just remember, everybody, that it is going to cause a huge, bigger wave of awakening. And that's what we have to be ready for, and keep our eye on that future, knowing that the ascension is happening no matter what. And that's how we wake up every day, and we know that the battle has already been won. Now we're going through the process of the awakening, but the battle has already been won. I just wanted to share that.
And they're getting funnier and funnier with the fact checking now on Facebook and stuff. Like, it's almost like, no, that's not true. We have to cover that up. Don't let anybody see it. That's a lie. But it's so obvious, right? The fact checking. That's hilarious. I'm sorry. I think what Carrie said in the beginning, if we can look at this somewhat as like a movie, like it's like we're living in a cartoon. The reality country, it's so humorous and ridiculous.
It is.
Agree, right? It's hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Nina, well said, love. Well said about the attempted second wave. if that does become an eventuality, there's no need to crawl under your bed and go, oh no, look, we've been overtaken. It's an opportunity for more people to wake up, as you've so perfectly said. You nailed it. I 100% feel that there will be an attempt for a second wave. They've been pushing that since before the so-called first wave even began. They were talking about the second wave. So in a sense, they've already told us what their plan is. But if that does take place, first of all, I feel it's already thwarted because more people than ever before are awakened now. Second of all, it is, as you said, opportunity for more people to awaken. You know, we live on a planet right now where we may not see the ships surrounding us, but we are truly surrounded by ships which have been cloaked, some of them for many months already, directly in our airspace. So I often have people saying, I've got a Facebook group, and then they'll post pictures and say, wow, look at this cloud. This is a really interesting cloud, they'll say. And you look at the picture, you know, and you know that's not a cloud. That is a ship. It's just what a cloaked ship will look like. The point remains, we are absolutely surrounded. The galactics are cradling us, holding us. And you know what else? There are more of them than there are of us. Think about that for a moment. There are more of these higher frequency beings surrounding us. There is more than one per person on this planet right now. That the first time I heard it, my brain just exploded to think about that. And it made my heart overflow with comfort and with love to know that and then to feel that. And that's a piece of information I don't want anybody to go, oh, Kerry says, don't repeat it unless you have felt it. And you can say, oh yeah, I can feel there's presence. I can feel, because there is presence surrounding us right now. Yeah.
And if
So,
anyone, sorry, please continue.
Yeah. No, just that we're more truly enlightened now than ever before. We have more contact than ever before. Our galactic family is literally on our doorsteps. They know what's going on. Where I think a lot of people are under the false impression of nobody knows what's happening here on planet Earth. Like, I live in South Africa. A lot of South Africans are under. Nobody knows because South Africa doesn't make the news. Nobody knows what's going on in South Africa. It's such a travesty. It is. But it's not true to say nobody knows. It is so known right now. And everything that we see, where their plans are revealed to us, celebrate. If I know the plan, I can't be fooled by the plan. Beautiful.
I was just going to add, you can find all of these signs in Hollywood. So you go back to The Fifth Element as an example, with shape-shifting and reptilians pretending to be human. Remember, right? You remember that movie?
The Blue Alien. I love that. Yes.
Right? And then of course the other one, I think it was Avengers. Wasn't it their ship that they cloaked into like a cloud and then it took off? Right?
Yes, it was.
That movie or whatever? Remembering that one? I think it was either the Avengers. It was when like Hulk and the girl and oh my gosh, the Captain.
It was a superhero one.
Yeah. It was a superhero movie, but they were on like a ship. It was a ocean liner ship, and then it changed into being able to fly, and they cloaked themselves, so they were clouds. So I only say that because people might think, well, how do they cloak themselves and it's a cloud? But well, they've already dipped our big toe in it with the Hollywood movies showing what their technology can do, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's wonderful to know we have friends in high places, and we're surrounded literally. And it, like I think you, right, Nina, right? You said the key to unlocking the kingdom of heaven is through the heart. And we have the best installed God's tech in our own body, right? Which is starting to come online. Because I never knew, talk about my own awakening process, I didn't know that I could tune into someone. I did a little bit of training. I didn't know that I could tune into somebody and see what I can see. So if that's happening to me, it's happening across the board, right?
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Our galactic family, they're so happy with where we are right now. They're so elated with what's going on right now. I see so many humans going, oh, this is so terrible. And I see the galactics going, this is amazing. Because from a greater perspective, it is amazing. We are awakening. It might look like turmoil, but it's just the crumbling of the old so that we can create the new, the perfect plan.
Yes, that's so true. And I think if somebody is coming, if somebody was listening to us talk who is within a third dimensional consciousness, they will say these women are crazy. You know, everything's falling apart. We're totally under attack. This planet's doomed. And these women are living on just some fairy tale. That's what they will see. And they'll be right from their perspective, because all they can see is the third dimension. You have to go beyond the third dimension. When Kerry said no one knows what's going on, within the third dimensional reality, that is true, because no one in 3D knows what's going on. They can't, because this is a multi-dimensional experience, and you have to be multi-dimensional to understand what is going on. You need to see the other dimensions to be able to understand what's happening on the third dimensional physical level. But Nina, I agree with you about the second wave. I think that's absolutely part of the plan. I think they've had to tweak it a little bit because all of this bit hasn't gone the way they wanted it to. I think the second wave was planned for a full global lockdown for an extended period of time, to really push humanity into a position where they give up and they are completely and utterly controllable, and will just, you know, allow a vaccine or a microchip because they're just at the end of their tether. That was the plan, to lock down humanity for an extended period of time. That isn't going to happen because it hasn't gone the way that they wanted it to. They can't do that. If they try and lock us down globally, I mean, people are already taking to the streets. I mean, there's just no way that the consciousness will allow another planetary lockdown. It happened for an experience, but that won't happen again. But what you're seeing, Nina, are these, from the US point of view, state by state or country by country in Europe, or maybe within the European countries here in the UK, maybe it will be these regional lockdowns. It may be a nationwide lockdown, 50-50 here. I don't think that they know how they will do it, because obviously they're responding to us. But that's definitely there, and it may actually come in the form of a curfew rather than an actual lockdown, or certain areas will have lockdowns, others will have curfews, some may not have restrictions. It will really depend on how things go in different areas, and obviously each region, each area has its own karmic consciousness in and of itself, which is connected to you but outside of you, which is why Nina is saying about, you may need the lesson that area is going to give you, that area is set to receive, but you may not need that lesson, which is why people are being called to move away. All of that's absolutely accurate. But what I would say is, it's not spreading fear. And I know a lot of people say, oh, you're just fear mongering, you're spreading fear. It's not spreading fear. When you are telling people what you see as a potential, what you see psychically, or what you think might happen, you're actually helping people by giving them that vision. You're not manifesting it, because you're not focusing on it. You're seeing it as a potential, and you are presenting it. Excuse me.
What I want to say I'm sorry, Nina, I just really quickly, to those that are listening that think we're utterly crazy, we are. We absolutely know who we are. And we know that we are part of our one with Source. But I would suggest that there's a really good video, an interview that Laura did with Seth, fellow Seth. It's on Laura's page. And he actually has a fantastic way of describing his own experience when he thought he was just the 3D person. But when he tuned into the rhythm, the natural rhythm of the open heart, this whole world opened up. So that might be something interesting for them to check out. And then of course, Carrie has a really good one for those that are still hating on Trump. You had a really good one called Cognitive Dissonance, which is a really good chat you did with your friend Lisa, who's lovely. I love her energy as well. So just there's so many resources, and everybody who's listening already knows that Magenta has a library of resources going back a couple of decades. And even on the definition of what Lucifer is, you can find a wealth of information to help you with your awakening. And that's why we do these chats too, is to help folks that wake up and go, oh my Lord, what is going on? Sorry, Nina, please continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, I was just wanting to say thank you, Magenta, because there is this misunderstanding that when you do share what you've seen publicly, people do feel like you're fear-mongering or you're going to manifest that. It's no, I'm letting you know what is very probable in the timelines energetically, and I'm giving it to you so that you can make a clear decision in your own discernment. But I always tell people, go into your own heart, go into your own prayer. You need to connect, and you need to hear, is it best and highest for me to relocate for a little while, or is it okay for me to stay? Not, oh my gosh, Nina said blah, 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 blah. No, 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 no. We're just telling you what we're seeing. And we are also responsible to do so if we've been guided to share it publicly. We just put it out there.
Yeah, I totally agree, Nina. And I was trying to explain this to someone recently. Excuse me coughing, it's not COVID, I promise.
Oh, come on.
Magenta's got COVID. No. Yeah, I've been talking a lot, and I get like a kind of a laryngitis sometimes. I expect you'll understand, Nina, from your singing, if you're using your voice too much. So that's what's happening here. But yeah, I mean, I was explaining this to a group of people recently, and what I would say is, if you were sat, Nina, under a tree, and there's a giant coconut above you, and I can see that that coconut is a bit wobbly, and I can see that the probability of that coconut, there's a giant big coconut, is going to fall, bang you on the head and knock you out, okay? Do I say nothing and just let you have that coconut fall on your head and knock you out? Or do I say, Nina, there's a giant coconut above you, it's about to fall down and knock you on the head and knock you out? And if you say to me, oh, don't be negative, Magenta. So is it negative to tell someone what you are seeing and warn them so they can get out of the way? And this is such a huge misunderstanding in the Lightworker, Truther, New Age community. The minute you say something like, you know, there might be a second lockdown, or this might happen, or that might happen, you're accused of being negative. Even if you're not psychic, you can see the probabilities of what may happen. I mean, obviously some people can't. And I know that there are many, many, many people out there who haven't even considered the thought of a second lockdown, even if it's being broadcast in mainstream, because they have blinkers, because they don't want to look at the negative. Those are the people that are going to be the most shocked, because the coconut is going to knock them on the head, because they're not listening to the warning to get out of the way. So that was the metaphor that I used to explain to people why telling you something that you see isn't negative. It's not fear-mongering. You are assisting and advising. If a coconut was about to whack Nina on the head, what kind of friend would I be by not telling her and letting her sit there and get knocked out? Even though that coconut might not knock you on the head, it might fall next to you, who knows? But if the trajectory is right above your head and it's looking like it's going to hit you, then I'm going to let you know. So that isn't negative, that's positive.
It's like letting somebody know they have a booger.
Yeah.
Let them know they have a booger. Or if they've tucked their skirt in their pantyhose, you know, and they're walking, maybe just be kind and let them know, hey.
Loving these metaphors, Paula, loving these metaphors.
Yeah, exactly. We got to keep it light, right? We got to keep it light.
Yeah.
All this shadowy stuff. And I think, go ahead.
Sorry. The other thing that I've heard people saying is, well, if you leave California, then you're running away, and then you're just the same thing is gonna follow you. That is absolutely not true. What we're talking about here is if you in your own vibration have chosen a timeline and you are operating in a certain vibrational frequency and you've been guided to leave, then you are perhaps being guided to a place that will allow you to live out that timeline and is more of an appropriate and in vibratory resonance with you, because now you are no longer in vibratory resonance with possibly the collective there that has chosen to have a certain experience together, which means they are all operating on the same timeline and they are all in vibratory resonance with each other. So this has kind of been something that I've really wanted to clarify, because I'm hearing so many falsities being spoken about, and I'm seeing a lot of what I would call newly awakening starseed light workers that are going, they're misunderstanding their ego, and they're thinking that their ego is their galactic information, or they're thinking that their ego is their consciousness, and it isn't. And actually that is your ego that is tricking you into believing that you need to stay because if you leave, you're going to go through the same exact thing, or you need to stay because if not, you're running away, or you need to stay because you need to hold and be a pillar of light. If this is really what Source is guiding you to do, okay. But if you're getting feelings and you're starting to feel like, no, I need to go, listen to that.
I do think, Nina, in a third dimensional sense, there are individuals who are obviously thinking, oh, I've got so many troubles here and so much stress. Moving is the answer. And so they are running away, and those problems do follow them. But these are individuals who are 3D, or who are just waking up, who haven't gone through an integration or worked with the shadow. So they're unable to access that aspect that's telling you and leading you to leave. So when someone awakened like you is getting these nudges to leave, this isn't coming from a lack of working with your shadow. So problems are not going to follow you. You are shifting from one environment to another because something's going to happen in the environment you're in that is no longer serving you. You're moving to pastures new. But with 3D, and that's probably where these individuals are coming from, that old saying, you can't run away from your problems, that's probably where they're coming from. It's true on a 3D level. But I do understand what you mean, Nina, and I'm seeing a lot of newly awakened individuals, and it's, you know, giving you spiritual advice. And it's like, I remember feeling like that sort of 25 years ago. I mean, this is part of awakening. You come to the point where you have some awakening for like 6 weeks and you think you are absolutely an ascended master, and you will start saying things like, don't think about a second wave because you'll manifest it, without understanding about manifestation and how manifestation works, because they've read The Secret. So, you know, that book is all they need, and that they haven't looked deeper. That's going to be huge. And I think those star seeds and light workers that are already aware need to be aware that we're going to have some, you know, baby light workers thinking that they are all knowing, and we have to be aware of, because the whole role of us as spiritual teachers, leaders, whatever word you give yourself, and I try not to call myself any of those things, but obviously we are, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. There's a whole wave of awakening going on, and our jobs are going to change accordingly over the next however long to accommodate these new waves of awakening. And this will be huge. So there'll be many who are already quite far down the awakening path that will find that there's a whole another level of issues that come with the awakening. Everything we've been through for the last 20 or 30 years, they're going to go through in a quicker way. And because they don't have the luxury of time like we had, they've got less time to sort of integrate all of that. So yes, that's huge in the lightworker community right now. On social media, everybody has become an expert on all sorts of subjects. Everyone's become a doctor, a medical professional. Everyone's a master healer. Everyone's an ascended master spiritually. Everyone knows all the, and they're all sort of, you know, telling each other all these things. And I think one really important thing is to not get drawn in, because the debates are important if you are at that level of awakening, because you're debating with yourself. Is this true? Is this true? What might be right? So having debates with others, even if it leads to an argument, is potentially part of your integration. But when you've been through that for the last 20 years yourself, then getting involved in debates is not going to serve you. It's not going to be constructive. So this is why many people who are in a position of have a following, if you will, or a teacher of some kind spiritually, this is why they don't engage that much with people. It's not because they're being rude. A, they've got so many people that want to talk to them, it's not possible. But B, you find that when you engage, it's lovely, and you can meet your soul family within that connection. And then one person will come along and they're angry, or they're an anti-Trump, or they're a troll, or they're paid to do it, or whatever it may be. And everyone in that position is going to have those infiltrations and those attacks. I don't know a single person in that position who hasn't been attacked on social media. And so we need to know when to engage and when to actually take a complete step back and, if need be, block people. But even when you do that, you will get attacked. I blocked someone yesterday, and then I had a friend of that person come forward and say, why have you blocked this person, Magenta? Do you not agree with free speech? Do you not think this person should be expressing their truth? My response is, yes, they should be expressing their truth. I absolutely welcome it, even if it disagrees with me. But what I will not take is attacking someone who has come onto my page, disagrees with everything I say, and wants to let me know, and is trolling post after post after post and upsetting other people on my page. Boundaries have to come in. Much as you love that person on a higher level, you need to bring those boundaries in, and you block that person and you delete their posts. Simple as that.
Yes,
I agree 100%.
So the message is be aware of your perceived or perhaps misperceived specialness. The spiritual ego can be cunning and very clever. So when you think you're special or above another, that's time to go back into the mirror and take a look at where that is. So I'm just looking at our time, girls. It's we're kind of at our just beyond the 2-hour mark. So I am so grateful to have this conversation. I hope that it inspires the minds and opens the hearts of everyone who happens to hear this. I'm so grateful for your presence. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording now, and everybody.